Hello, my snacks. Welcome back. My name is Jack. It is my eyeball today. Featured in this intro, it's time to read some more Reddit stories. So, let's begin. This story began 2 years ago by a familiar name, That Last By Unicorn. Some of you might have watched the previous video where you'd be familiar with this person. Her more recent experience was someone that she decided to just let her whole friend group ice out as sort of petty revenge. Well, I got a bit curious about what she was referencing at the start of her story and thought we'd do a little bit of a prequel reading. No need to watch the other video first. Technically, that video comes after the events of this one. So, with that said, strap in and learn the exciting reason That Last By Unicorn has terrifying food trauma, a fear of going out to places she isn't familiar with, and understandably deserves a cuddle from all of us, once she's comfortable with us strangers, of course. Maybe don't offer her a cuddle. How does this all start? Well, it's in the title, Am I the A-hole for not giving my boyfriend a threesome? This is a throwaway because too much identifying info is on my main. I, female 29, met my boyfriend Michael, male 35, at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week, and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me. But I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Now, Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our bedroom life and having a threesome. He said, since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War, and he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding, asking what time he needed to pick me up since we can't go separate, otherwise people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception, he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me, but I shied away, and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after, and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction, but I had my pen, but I still had to be carted off by the ambulance, and that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again, when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, he still never replied. Eventually, I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up. So I woke up my best friend, and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning, Michael called me, but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He then came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point as I am dramatic, and this is all too much. So I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I am not the only person with allergies that attended. He left telling me that he can't talk to me when I am this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him, but his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered, he then told me how I am hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him, even in intimate settings, or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there. So to have him tell me I am in the wrong through me, am I the a-hole? Gang, she could be. It's very possible. I don't know about you, but we read the same story. I completely understand why Michael just can't handle her when she's like this. Anyway, great suggestion in the comments here. If this pastor is gonna try and guilt trip OP, well then, hey, tell his dad about the threesome request. That should end it. Which I would love to say happened in the update, but sadly OP even comments that, I gotta say, the thought made me chuckle, but my anxiety could never. So I already hate OP because they're boring. Some people even sort of shame OP for getting into this mess. You're allergic to coconut and ate a coconut cream cake, not the a-hole, but look out for yourself better. Now, I get the common sense of like, hey, if something looks like coconut cream, maybe don't eat it, but I'm sure this was a case where the cakes looked almost entirely similar. Many events such as weddings usually do that with their food, so I'm not really going to put OP on that sort of mark. But now others actually believe OP might be twisting things a bit. That if you really look at this from as neutral as possible, accounting for the possible bias coming from OP in this story, that he asks you for the threesome, you say no, that's fair. He gives you a cold shoulder, that's a dick move. You go to the wedding together and he seemingly tries to patch things up, credit to him. But you reject his kiss and treat him coldly. Okay, that's your choice. He accepts your rejection and goes out with friends. That's his choice. You get an allergic reaction, and you decide you want him after all. That's entirely within your rights. But he doesn't come running to you. Well, that's within his rights. I just don't know where you get the idea that you can reject someone as many times as you want, but then expect them to come running whenever you need them. Now, what are your thoughts? I will agree that, yeah, you don't get to just reject someone multiple times, and then suddenly when you need them, they have to just suddenly turn around and be at your beck and call. But I'm gonna say I feel this comment is giving a lot of... like the olive branch Michael is getting in this comment is more like an olive tree. Not to mention, it really seems to ignore all the gaslighting that happens afterwards. But now, some people do sort of question some things about OP here. Being bi doesn't, I assume, mean you want to watch your partner railing some other person, which I'm really surprised people aren't aware of that. Everyone knows that bisexuality, it's spelt C-U-C-K. Like, it's commonly known along the English language that if someone says goodbye to you, they're not saying farewell, they're just accusing you of being a good little cuckold. But now other comments make some serious theories about this situation that OP answers in both an edit and a small update. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I am allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use it against me to leverage in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. In a small update, Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out, and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and feels bad he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off some much-needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay, and he is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. So that was about a day after the event, and come on over he does. Much against the behest of many people in the comments, which brings us to this update assuming to be about a few days after. And how did that conversation go? Well, according to OP, I am no longer welcome at church. Well, many of you were right, I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch, insisting he pay for it all, and was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of, if I hurt you, or that you're feeling X or Y feeling, etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the girlfriend of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. Girl, it's been like 2 paragraphs, you're fine. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one single allergy and that he didn't bother to tell his own girlfriend he was stepping out with the guys or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut and implied I am an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong and thus there was no point. So I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what? Don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I am a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done, and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can, without blaming Michael for prior illnesses, without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church where we can pray together, talk it out, and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say it this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate, and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails rolling in that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. And by the way, screw you, Michael. I know you are reading this, I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. So that is just insane, to realize that you can genuinely think of multiple times where you conveniently got sick after arguing with your partner. The fact he would go to this level as well, just because you didn't want to have a threesome, you didn't want to be cuckolded, what the hell, gets people to say, losing your community is hard, but a community in which true husbands poison their spouse is probably not conducive to long-term prosperity. What do you mean? Being in constant fear of your partner possibly causing pain and harm to you is... Oh, it's blissful. Now, okay, we'd think it ends there. We all know now why OP has their food trauma issues. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense as to why she has it. So then why do we get another update a year later? It starts, "It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories and the story reminded me that I never did an update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laugh laid back. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am." My ex quickly moved on, and he had a new girlfriend within a month of us breaking up. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook, and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and my ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other. Childhood friends apparently, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and my ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving that I am not, and to let her know, as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I schmit you not. I sent screenshots of the chat to my new church buddies, and my friends sent vomiting emojis, and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right, and replied to her with, "Yeah, marry him if that's what you want," and nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed, really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me. But for now, just for fun, I am going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. Lol, no, that's true. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I am curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will let you know. So overall, things were going pretty well for OP. Living the good life, out of the cult that's undeniably a cult. I mean, come on. Definitely Christian in name only. What is that, a CNO? Is that even a term? It's a term now. Well, on this story, there were a lot of comments not assured that things were all fine and dandy for OP. Many were arguing to get a restraining order on them both, the ex and his new girlfriend. He tried to kill you with your allergy by giving you tainted food, and his new girlfriend is a stalker. Call the police. Now, that's a bit intense. I mean, all she did was just reach out via Facebook Messenger to ask her a question. But that is when we come to the next update. He proposed. This is really hard to explain. So, after my last post, he stayed away for all of a hot second. He kept dropping off gifts and food. Freaking food, of all things, at my door. I've ignored them and thrown them out at the end of each week like all trash. He then waited out front for me, so when I came out to take the trash out, he was sitting right there. I didn't even see him. I was tired and just trying to get chores done. But he blocked me from my door and went on a speech about how I am his true wife and that he cannot marry his girlfriend without my permission. I can't keep track of the mental and theological gymnastics he took, but he basically asked me for a threesome with his current girlfriend to see if we can work out who his true wife is. I bluffed and said that my necklace has a panic button on it and the cops are alerted of him being there and to go. He sort of stared at me, but it was blank, like he wasn't even human. He went on to say stuff about thinking about me every night before bed and more. Meanwhile, I was starting to gauge just how fast I am compared to him and how quick I would need to run to even wake a neighbor, which one of them would be quicker to be responsive and on and on. I just kept saying no, and that the cops would be there, and thank the universe for a random siren we both heard. I don't know if that's what convinced him, but he did leave, and he was sort of chuckling and said that I've always been so playful and called my behavior an act. Okay, Jesus Christ, how could that guy not interpret the fact that siren was clearly an act of God? Like, that is clearly God's way of saying, hey man, you need to back off. You are too far gone, man. Just leave it and go. It took me less than 30 minutes to pack a bag and head to a friend's. I sat in her tub for what felt like a day. It wasn't. When I finally got out, she and I sat down and started making a plan to start moving my things out bit by bit until it's just down to the furniture. I don't give a flying smack about the furniture. So we implemented the plan. She would drop in, her dad would, her mom would, I would with her brother, and slowly over this time, we took everything I really cared to keep from my home. I'm safe and away from there, and just ready to wash my hands of the place. He has texted me a few times assuring me of this plan to pick his wife. So I finally cracked and sent his messages to his parents last week. It's been silent since then until this past Wednesday. There's a bar I like where they have Wine Wednesdays, and I went to just relax until I felt a tap on my shoulder. He's there with what looks like a group, and he starts smiling and says we need to talk. I loudly tell him to leave me alone, but he just drops to his knees and asks me to marry him. Some people start to clap. A regular who knows me is now at my back leaning in to ask if I'm okay. I jerk back and tell him to leave me alone. The regular offered to pay my tab so I can leave, and he walked me to my car. Now it's been this game of getting footage, dealing with the police, and so far I'm told this isn't evidence of harassment, but a domestic dispute. So I don't know what to do about that. I know that I am done with where I live, but moving now feels like the hardest task in the world. I know I have to. I can't stay here, but now I'm mourning it all. It all feels too big. So yeah, that is absolutely insane to argue this is a domestic dispute. As this comment says, that's BS as you aren't in a relationship with him anymore. Go see a lawyer or a DV advocacy program and ask for help getting a restraining order. Have a lawyer draft a cease and desist letter. Also, more importantly, check your car and belongings for AirTags. But hey, those of us who read the more recent drama she's dealt with can feel rest assured to know that she eventually did get this all sorted. He has now got a restraining order, and OP has thankfully been able to move on as best as they could, at least until Tammy turned up. But hey, if you want to know about that story, feel free to check out the previous video about that whole drama. In the meantime, though, I think it's good to end things there. Thank you, as always, for watching. Love your face, and remember to eat something. Bye!